Hi, YouTube. I hope you're doing good. I'm doing okay. Um, I've really had on my mind, how the onset of schizophrenia is typically in young adulthood. It's really rare to find like a schizophrenic child. I really wonder if the medical community has this kind of wrong for the mere reason of the spirituality that's within people. So if you hear voices and like one's good or one's evil, or maybe you feel like there's several voices, how many emotional care professionals are going to say that we have heard these within our own spirits? How many people are going to come right out and say it like that? These are human beings, souls we're talking about. These are people, you know? So, how do we get beyond a barrier of textbooks that were written without the spiritual warfare that's going on in mind? The whole world will not acknowledge this. There's a whole generations of people that are schizophrenic by definition because of textbooks that were written. But what if we're wrong? And I believe we are. I really do believe we are. I think traumas and head traumas and physical traumas can lead to upsets. When you're upset, you can. Okay, here's a scenario that kind of proves a part of my theory, even in a healthy human being. You'll be going through your typical day. Maybe you worked hard and you're getting a little bit tired, and then more is put on you. And you might have a tendency to either shut down or your brain will be racing. It's very rare that most people cannot function under stress. Most people cannot. So these young adults and adolescents are confronted with the spirituality in the world, and there's no protection for them because now they're labeled mentally ill, behavioral, emotionally unbalanced, and it's a problem for society. By textbook definition, a schizophrenic person is labeled something that I think that it isn't for the most part. I really believe that. I really do. I don't know how I'm going to prove this or what I'm going to do, but there's certain things within a mental health community that I don't just see as what's written in the textbook to be true. I would believe more on a spiritual instruction from an elder in a society that cared about people. They could say, wow, yeah, I remember somebody like this, and we told them, the battle within yourselves, these two opposing forces that people aren't taught. Why aren't they taught this in school? Why isn't spiritual warfare the actual thing taught in schools? If people say they care so much about other people, where's the real education on how human beings operate? They think they've got them. They're making money off of what they say they have. Yeah, it's disturbing. On a lighter note, I made some pickled beets yesterday, cucumbers, and some onion. So I love pickled beets. I don't like them when I buy them because they're just gross, so they have to be homemade ones. Same with pickles. Anything pickled like that is usually better if it's a homemade something. sometimes. I hope they turn out all okay. I'll let you know. They should. I was into for a long time there, pickling eggs. I'm gonna be making another big jar of them. Those are so nice to have, like when you have worked hard or you're busy or whatever, and you can either eat it by itself, and anything pickled has good uh, acidosis for your gut biome, Um, so that's always a plus. But then you can take like a couple of them and make like a quick egg salad sandwich out of it because it's already ready, or put a pickled egg on a salad for some protein, or they're just nice to have. It's there's recipes online, but they're so easy to make. It's incredibly easy. So I've gone through that in other videos for people. If you're interested, I'll tell you how. It's so simple. You just hard boil your eggs and make the brine and pour it on there. And 2 days later, they're ready to eat, and they last for at least a half a year. If you have them in a sealed container, they'll last for probably, I would say, up to at least 3 years, but probably 20, being that it's canned and pickled. You know, we have a very old jar of kimchi that both of us are scared to eat. It's probably excellent, but uh, and it's just like sauerkraut. I mean, that can get kind of old even if you can it. It can get like, but you can take like a layer off the top and the stuff underneath that never got any air. Um, it's usually, it's okay. It's like when you can different kinds of jams. A lot of times, you could just scrape some of the stuff off the top and the rest of it would be okay. So, yeah. I'm not that desperate, but yeah. I had a little bit of summer sausage last night on this flatbread called gnocchi. It's a rye bread, like a cracker type thing. And then I had sunflower seeds. That's usual for me on a daily. It used to be pretzels, but I replaced my craving for salt with the sunflower seeds, which is healthier for me. And then I had a half a cantaloupe. It was pretty awful. It was from the store. It was pretty gross. I wish I hadn't just kept eating it. I didn't eat as much as I could. It just wasn't that good. It was pretty bad. And I was craving one, so I've had like a stomach ache all night long from that thing. So, yeah. So I'm not sure. I think I'm gonna have chicken for supper and probably some of my pickled beets. That sounds good. Oh, yeah, so anyway, what do you think about that, my theory on schizophrenia? Is there any doctor or therapist or counselor or minister out there besides me, excuse me a minute, brave enough to take on the spiritual warfare and maybe even lose out on what society would give you with money for lying about things that aren't true? How do we remedy all this? Well, of course, we have to be aware of something before we can fix it. That's a big thing. Just like examining ourselves. If we're not aware of something, how you ever gonna fix it? If we refuse to acknowledge something. you know. Puts you right at a standstill. The minute you deny something that's in your spirit, you already lost right there. How do you pull yourself back from that if you're letting your ego get in the way of a message that God's trying to get you to know? I'm just curious, I mean, what would you do? What would you tell a friend if your friend was stuck in the confines of society and they were hurting themselves and maybe hurting other people? What would you tell somebody you love? That's what I'm searching for, the words to say. You know, it's like, okay, here's a scenario. Maybe I have a friend that has a tendency to wear really low cut stuff. Like it's outlandish. It isn't even, there's nothing feminine about it. It just looks like a hose bag, you know. So how would I go about talking to a friend like that? Because now I'm going to tell you the truth. I have be like, okay, look, if you're going to go be with your man, I would maybe dress like that when you're alone with him, but you don't need to dress like that around me because I don't need to see that. Nobody else really needs to see that either. And guess what? She started dressing different. But if we don't say anything to the people we care about, who's going to? I'm serious. And people be like, oh, yeah, yeah, but, um, well, whatever. I guess society is so lax on what I see as, I mean, if you're gonna like dress like these people on stage dressing like in something you'd wear at the beach. Okay, we expect that at the beach, but on stage? Why? I mean, it was a little cute back in like the 80s we had, or was that early 90s? Solid gold with the dancers, and they had like hot pants and like high boots or um spiked heels or whatever. Yeah, it was a little sexy, but it wasn't like everything hanging out of every end. It's like, wow. I'd be surprised if people won't be putting extra orifices on themselves. It's like, don't have enough holes? Come in. We'll provide you with a new hole. It'll only be $10,000. You know? This world's weird. You never know. It just like they get more lenient and lenient and lenient. And pretty soon you're looking at something that is unhealthy for society being pushed like it's healthy. Like if I tell somebody um, something about their weight or whatever, or if somebody tells me something about my weight, and then all of a sudden, what? I'm allowed to get offended because I don't exercise, you know? But all my friends said is, gee, I sure wish you'd get up and go for a walk with me, you know? But now all of a sudden, what? That person that wants to go for a walk and get you to go be healthy is some kind of enemy to you or everybody else on the planet because they say, hey, you actually look a lot better when you're not as overweight, you know? Or here's a milkshake, you actually look better with a little more weight on you, you know? That's an actual thing too, you know, for men and women. Just obsessed with that. Yeah, I mean, we all should be concerned about what we put in us. But mostly the impression we give other people, I guess, is what I'm getting at with our clothes. What impression are we trying to make? Now, if it's absolutely like 110 degrees out or something, or I might wear like a sundress you know, but I don't know. It's my personality is really hard to describe. I don't know, like that. I just don't know what to tell you. I don't know. I grew up around somebody that um, wanted me to wear things that were more alluring, that I refused to do that. I was looked at like a total piece of shit for that when I was a little kid. Believe that. That's a fact. So it is a touchy subject with me because I would look at older people and think, why in the world, like if you're a married woman and you're letting it all hang out for every other man to see, for number one, if I was your husband, I'd chuck your ass. I'd be done with you. Same with any man that acts like that. And believe me, I have walked in my words. I do what I say and what I recommend. That's exactly how I operate. It's like, why in the world would you want a bunch of strangers to look at your most private spots on you? What the hell is wrong with you? You know? It is really gross. I don't care if it's men doing it or women doing it. It's like, unless you're a bodybuilder and that's really your profession, or you're an athlete or something, and you have a reason to be like in that swimsuit, or you're actually at the beach. But back to these, like, and they're gross. I mean, singing and exposing your body. I don't know. I don't know. Not that everybody does, because not all of them do, but yeah. It's sad. It's a sad world. It really is. You'd think if you had a daughter, you wouldn't want to expose her developing parts to the whole world. And there's a lot of mothers and daughters that fight over those types of things. On the other hand, you have mothers that will dress like the daughters. And ladies, raise your hand. Don't you think that's like so gross? I do. I really do. There are things that are like age appropriate in some manners, for some things. It really is. And besides that, for older women trying to be alluring, why don't you go sit down and let the girls and the young ladies have their day in the sun? We had ours. Now, praise their little beautiful butts and make sure that your prayers are behind them and their safety, and put some clothes on, you old rag bag. You look nasty. Well, there you go. I just said it. That's how I feel about it. And it's not that just young girls. I mean, there's middle-aged people that are out on the dating scene, but there is a mode address. There's different ways that somebody who's 40 is going to act and somebody who's 20 is going to act. There you would think and usually, typically, I would say there's a big difference, you know. Who's honest out there? Have you ever felt in your spirit that somebody was trying to talk to you? This is a yes or no question. This is for all people in the field in position to help somebody else realize that this is an absolutely real thing, not the actual voice, but the feeling of that communication from the ether or ether, however you want to. It's a real thing. How do we prove this is a real thing? That it could be used in science and health, because this is a part of who we are. The spirituality makes up 1/3 of who we are. So approximately 95% of us is like water and bacterium and molecules, a very small essence of who we actually are is in this vessel. How do you explain that to somebody that thinks they're schizophrenic and hearing voices when they're adolescent, the most attacked demographic on our planet? Not only little people, but when you're like 15 years old, maybe 16, 17, through that 15 through 18, you are highly targeted by the satanic force, because this is time when you're stepping into society as a pseudo adult, mini adult, approaching your part in the world as an adult is exactly when you're being attacked in the extreme. And this is when the onset of schizophrenia is going into young adulthood. I'm not buying it wholeheartedly. Just like, okay, I've run across some psychiatrists and doctors and professors that acknowledge the fact that narcissism is evil. I'm sure they can't say that in their practice, or if they have somebody that's a client of theirs, because the spiritual warfare isn't acknowledged in a person's health. This is a huge concern. The big part of who we are. And everybody has their sorrows and their what they call shadow work, and their belief systems, their faith and religions and whatnot. And they'll go to psychiatrists. They'll even go to like their clergy in a church or whoever, all kinds of counselors, and the actual spiritual warfare is never addressed by any of these people, you know? So this is like me with my granddaughter. Look at me. I'm different, right? Well, yeah. Okay, so we have that established. Right now, you're my offspring. And see how your dad got attacked? And this is some of the stuff that happened to him. Okay, now we have that established. That's the second generation. So what do you think Satan wants to do to you? You're the third generation now. And think about that. And if you were to have a child, what would you say to your child? And how would you express that to your kid to be able to make them know that demonic forces are against you and there's not enough people aware of it or admitting it? They don't admit it. And this leaves these children all alone and vulnerable, sometimes suicidal, and totally attacked with nobody to talk to about the actual things that are going on, you know. Then they put them on medication. And this is a lifelong thing, typically. That's a concern of mine, too, because the side effects are like sleepiness, overeating. How can you function if you're tired, you overeat, and then you get depression because you're self-isolating because you don't have any friends because you're deemed crazy because people aren't talking that it's really not crazy. It's a spiritual war, but textbook says crazy. Grandma says spiritual war. How do I prove it? You know? Well, it's true. We're not the only generations. I'm just using that as an example, you know. Nobody's actually marked safe from not being attacked in this world by the dark forces, even Satan's own. In fact, they'll devour each other if it suits their purpose. We know that's true. Nobody's marked safe, at least not by that. Know how Satan accuses the brethren or the people in the world? This is a tactic. It's like getting before God and saying, well, she did this, that, and the next thing. And I'm up there in front of God and I'm saying, no, you're saying I did this, that, and the next thing, but it was you all along. And being that I recognize that all along, everything you say is a damn lie. And I have never owned any of the crap that goes through my mind. I won't say never. I very seldom own any of the crap that comes through on that wavelength, you know. And like I told him this morning, he's like, oh, but they want you down there on that level if you get angry. And I said, look, I said, this is where we're going to go with this. And just, I'm going to tell you, if by chance, because I was made like half demonic and half good, and yes, we all are, and God controls the whole thing. So, if I do happen to get on there, I'm going to thoroughly enjoy being there, and God's going to control that. But for right now, like everything's okay. But cross that line, it might not be okay. So if I say something that might hurt your widow feelings after you've put me in the position of wanting to say something that may be a little off back to somebody who's acting totally off, if I go down there, I'm going to be down there and I'm going to do it better than that trash. I'm not going to be trashy, but I will trash your ass when it comes to that. I don't play those games with Satan. He does not own my ass. He might own other people, but he doesn't control me at all. He never has. Not like that. When I was a little kid, I did stupid things. Kids do stupid things, but I won't say that I was satanically guided. They sure tried to make me satanically guided. And local people around me would. I caught them trying to put thoughts into my head. You know, it's that narcissistic smirk type of thing that I grew up around when people would do something nasty and vile, and then what? Yeah, I have patience, but there's going to be days, and there have been times where you have to pay to play. And I'm not in control of that, but I'm not gonna bow down to Satan and tell him, "Oh, I'm your very own because I just got angry." No, son of a bitch, if I get that mad, that is on you. I'm not playing these games like that's where they want your vibration. No, if I go there, that's with God's grace, and you can off on the rest of your bullshit right there, you know, because He made me who I am, and I'm a warrior like that. So I don't play that game like, oh yeah, like you gotta vibrate high all the time or you're not gonna excel and what. Oh, no, no, no. Get out of here. I mean, I'm a happy person, but when bad things happen, I'm still happy underneath. But, yeah, patience goes so far. You can't take the most patient person on the planet and then laugh at them when they said, "See, I just made you angry." No, you didn't make me angry. I just got sick of you trying to make me angry. You know, there is a difference. So, yeah, I had to clear that up with Doug again today. So, yeah, some parents or spouses or friends really don't want you to excel because they don't want to, you know? And if they don't want to, they're like a ball and chain around your neck, you know? The old ball and chain. Yeah, that shit's real. They'll drag you down if they can and keep you there. Typically, that scenario in a marriage wouldn't even bother me. Like just that saying, you know? I never had a problem with letting a man pretend to be the leader of my family. But I do have a problem with that now. But I never really used to, I thought. And I do know that is the way it's supposed to be, you know. It's just not a real common thing. Not really. There's a lot of spineless men out there. And this I will put in the hands of the men that should be stepping up and saying, yeah, this is mostly spiritual here. We need to be talking about this more. I need to protect my kids. How do I go about this? Who do I talk to? Well, you have to start speaking out on platforms that deal with the psychology of human beings, religious organizations, medical health, mental health, you know, physical and mental. Every place that somebody in governments, every place somebody has a voice that you can be heard and they can accentuate on that and help us with this. Is the only way we're going to do these things. Making goals, having the ideas to go forward with things. And as I'm talking, my ideas from that, they're God given. I know He's driving me. It's flowing, you know. The ideas are in here, and they're never ending. There's all kinds of ideas to help this world. It's just that the globalists don't want anybody to excel, and the greedy people don't care, and that makes it doubly as bad, you know? Yeah. Anyway. Well, probably that's about it on my mind today. It's just, when are people gonna actually start seeing that, and telling everybody that if you don't have God in your heart, you know God's trying to reach you. That's one voice. And if you do, and you know that that satanic voice is coming in at you, when are adults on this planet going to start saying it to help the younger people so they don't feel crazy, so they don't feel alone? You know, when are we going to start being honest for them? Hello? Anybody? I think it's a pretty good idea. Yeah. My kids are aware of that. We've even talked about it. But the path they chose to walk, there's nothing I can do about that. But my kids have been thoroughly instructed, you know, in those areas. And yeah, they were sabotaged hard right from even pre-birth. I think a lot of like trauma and schizophrenia. I can't prove it, but I'm sure that it's trauma based. I'm sure that it could be sleep deprivation. Like if you're around a very loud, say like if your dad was really loud and like argumentative, and so it made the whole household uneasy. Maybe both your parents were like that, or just one of them. Maybe some siblings were too. What a lonely world if you're stuck in all that, you know? And then you go within your mind, and that is where like the narcissism operates, and it is all a mental facade that our spirits are going through, you know? The materialness of it all. That's the fakeness of it all. I mean, it's not that it's not glorious or real or that our world isn't tangible, because it is. There's just some things that words cannot describe, that science cannot explain, because they're not God and they weren't there. It's like somebody trying to tell me what the name of God is. Were you there? Nah, you weren't. Shut up. I don't need to hear you. You're just guessing like the rest of us. So anyway, maybe you were there and maybe you do know. But I'm just saying, most people weren't, you know. So, but you have these people out there, you have to say it this way, and or you won't enter the kingdom of God. Says who? Shut up. I know God loves me. I don't have to say abracadabra to freaking prove it. You know, what are the magic words? You can't open the porthole without the magic words, you know. So I think I made my point. That's probably about it for today. I just want to make it really clear that there are millions of young people coming up in this spiritual war that are so unprepared because they're not taught the truth of it. And now the psychological community and their textbooks that are like some of them now like going on about 190 years for some of them, concerning schizophrenia, and the things that have been taught about it that people are just taking as gospel facts, and it's so untrue. But everybody's just repeating what was written there. And how do you scientifically study a spiritual war? How do you teach a spiritual war to millions of young people coming up? Because the medical community is omitting those two forces in the care of all human beings. And this is a fact. And you can't do it without it. You're just like a paid whore if you're taking money, giving somebody a drug for schizophrenia when they could be seeking the Word of God within themselves, and they're not taught the difference. And it's ignored. I've seen parents ignore this fact. The child's on medication for the rest of their life. If they stop taking it, they can become violent or suicidal. What the hell are we doing to our youth? You know? Yeah. Please consider it. I mean, like I've said before, I can't do this alone. But I know I put my thoughts out there, and I do see some, like with the measure of sadism put into the dark tetrad now, of how we can measure um, the dark personality behavioral traits within people. I know I had a big push for that because it's true. It's a part of that personal makeup of the darker personalities. And these are the type of things that we do have to talk about and have implemented in our care for other people, or these people are going to be entirely lost. What the global agendas have that they're going to implement towards people is on a spiritual level, physical, mental, um, within all their teachings and learnings. What they're going to learn is going to be way more lies and more attacks than we even went through. So we need to keep up with it. We need to implement some tools for these little people before they get in the position where they have to face life out on their own, because they're not safe. I mean, they never have been, but it's getting worse all the time. Okay, everybody. I appreciate you joining me. Um, one of these days I might make a video that somebody's really thinking, wow, this is true, and wow, we really need to do something about this. And yeah, whatever. What a waste of time, right? Or is it? Okay. Peace and love from Pine City, Minnesota, USA. Have a good night or day wherever you're at.